Watch and burn.
Hey everybody. So tonight I am looking to discuss Lady Gaga's new one. She released this yesterday, I believe, Friday, March, whatever, 2025. I'm really good with dates, March, whatever. And I was really excited for this because I felt that she'd been branching out and trying so many new things over the years. And I felt that, like with Joanne, for example, I thought that was sort of her folklore. And she did a really good job with it. But then Chromatica was like a return to form for her. And then, of course, she did her Tony Bennett record, and she did the A Star Is Born. And then, of course, she did the misguided Harley Quinn record, where she wasn't supposed to be able to sing well. Whatever the less that's said about the Joker, the second Joker movie, the better. I mean, that movie was a train wreck. But this, then when I started to see the artwork pop up around the single for Disease, and then when the video dropped for Disease, and the font she was using for the album, Mayhem, of course, the title of the album, Mayhem, I started to get like almost kind of like a low-key kind of black metal vibe from it all. And I liked how some of the merchandise was very reflective of that sort of state of mind, I suppose, where like it had Lady Gaga intersecting with the word mayhem in sort of an off-kilter, maybe sort of cross type situation, whereas the Y in Lady would line up with the Y in mayhem. And Disease was an incredibly fresh sounding, thick, pounding track from her. And then we got word that she was apparently directly influenced by like 1990s industrial by way of the Nine Inch Nails. Specifically, she named the track Closer, which was their massive release off their massive 1994 album, The Downward Spiral. I think that was the leading single off that record. That record was so much fun. The Nine Inch Nails, like Trent Reznor is a genius. And so the fact that Lady Gaga was branching out and trying new things with this record, it was really exciting. And then when the second single for Abracadabra dropped, I like Abracadabra way more than I did Disease. And I thought Disease was perfect. I loved the sort of, like, you can hear Closer's influence on Disease, but then at the same time, you can kind of hear the Nine Inch Nails influence. I wanted to be able to say throughout the whole album. That's the biggest disappointment here for me. You can hear the Nine Inch Nails influence on the first 4 tracks on this album so completely. She also signaled out and said that she was influenced by Radiohead. Now, I'm assuming that when she said that she was influenced by Radiohead on this record, that she meant more of a Kid A/Amnesiac influence, not so much like a Pablo Honey OK Computer, because Lady Gaga has always been big into electronic music. That's sort of her thing. And then Radiohead reinvented themselves by introducing the use of electronics, thanks to them getting into Aphex Twin, if memory serves, with Kid A. I didn't love that record. Everything in Its Right Place is the only song I liked off that album. I thought the rest of it was nothing. I preferred Amnesiac. I mean, that record's perfect, or as some people call it, Kid B. But the first 4 songs on here, Disease, Abracadabra, Garden of Eden, and Perfect Celebrity, they all ooze like a thickness. There's a roughness to them. They're big. They're pounding. They seem more menacing. They seem to have a focus on an industrial 90s vibe. And so I was thinking to myself, I couldn't wait for this record to be released, because I kept thinking, like, where is this record going to go? What is she going to do with this? And then, like I said, once it was confirmed that the Nine Inch Nails influence was there, I was like, oh Christ, this thing is going to be amazing. And it was, up until track 5, which kicks in with, whatchamacallit, Vanish Into You. And this record just kind of vanishes into nothing from that point forward. There's a significant change in energy, tempo, focus. It seems like the first 4 songs, they'd make a really strong EP. And then all of the other songs like Killa, Zombie Boy, Love Drug, How Bad Do You Want Me, whatchamacallit, Blade of Grass. It's almost like they're like the B-sides from the EP, because they're not as strong, so they didn't want to release them. That's the way I have this record framed in my head now. This record is an EP, and the rest of the songs after like track 5 forward are just leftovers, because they all sort of have a very safe sort of I'm shopping at Urban Planet vibe, and this is the background music going for them. There's hints of Peter Gabriel, which again lend themselves out to more of a Nine Inch Nails vibe, because the song Closer by Nine Inch Nails has always reminded me of Peter Gabriel's stuff, as well as like Nine Inch Nails Into the Void reminded me heavily of Peter Gabriel's stuff, like say Sledgehammer, for example. But this record from that point forward, it's just like Vanish Into You sounds like typical, safe Lady Gaga, the Lady Gaga of yesteryear. And it isn't sort of continuing to fulfill the promise of this 1990s industrial influence. And then Killa is too slow, but it does have that Peter Gabriel, maybe Nine Inch Nails vibe, so I can sort of get on board for it, but it is just so, the rest of this record is just so anticlimactic. Like the first 4 songs consistently build you up to something, and then Vanish Into You, through Zombie Boy, Love Drug, they're competently written pop songs. I mean, the average amount of songwriters on each song is like 4 or 5 people, which is ridiculous. And she did employ Andrew Watt. He, if I'm not mistaken, he has a co-writing credit on, I think, every single song on this album. Now, if you don't know who Andrew Watt is, he's written songs for Justin Bieber. He's written songs for Shawn Mendes. He's written songs for, I guess it's obvious now, Camila Cabello, and a bunch of other people that, of course, I can't recall now that I'm recording this. All of a sudden, my mind goes blank after hitting those 3 people. But Andrew Watt is a professional songwriter, and Gaga has employed him, along with a handful of other people, to help write all of these songs. And they just feel kind of uninspired. Like, Don't Call Tonight's not a bad song. It has its moments, but again, it just feels too safe. There's a Michael Jackson vibe completely to like Shadow of a Man, for example. But it's out of place. It's almost like Jackson's sound is so rooted in the early to late 1980s. Like even Jackson's Dangerous was sort of out of place when he released that in the early 90s, because by then there's such a cultural shift, musically speaking, that it was like Michael Jackson started to become a little out of vogue with what the kids were doing. And I love Michael Jackson's sound. I always have. I always will. But it just feels weak on this album. And I'm not even sure if they were going for a Michael Jackson vibe. It's just that I sort of hear a weak Michael Jackson-ish influence on so many of the tracks from Killa, so I Vanish Into You forward. And then overall, too, there seems to be a heavy disco vibe. Now, Donna Summer kicks ass, and Giorgio Moroder kicks ass, and Boney M kicked ass, okay? But disco? Really? And it's not even like big, pumping, jumping up disco. It's like safe disco. It's like background music, again, shopping at Forever 21 disco. And it's just like she wanted to take chances and try something new. Like the synth work on Perfect Celebrity. It just wobbles and weaves and twists and turns in ways that the Nine Inch Nails have always done with their synths. And it's exciting and it's fun and it's fresh. And then the rest of the record, the last track with Bruno Mars. Now, I got nothing against Bruno Mars. I'm sure he's a cool guy. But what a horribly slow and boring way to end the record. Die With a Smile, or whatever the hell the song's called. It's just like the final nail in this album's like coffin. Like it's kind of got this kind of like 1980s kind of ballad vibe to it. And it lacks the strength of other 1980s sort of more ballad vibes, like Islands in the Stream by Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers. You know, that works, and whereas Die With a Smile doesn't work. Now, maybe I'm alone in feeling that the 1980s ballad vibe is there with Die With a Smile, but I do kind of get that vibe from it. I don't know, this record just feels like, I don't know, it's like they really put the effort in the first 4 tracks, and then they're just sort of like, yeah, whatever, with the rest of it. It's done. We got the singles out of the way. It's cool. The fan base will be very accepting of the rest of them. What's wrong with diversification through disco and Michael Jackson? There's nothing wrong with that at all, so we'll just leave it there. But it just feels like as of track 5 forward, they stopped trying. And it's disappointing too, because like I said, I was really excited at the prospect of this having a complete, from start to finish, 1990s industrial Nine Inch Nails vibe. And I didn't really hear the Radiohead influence again. I'm not sure if I said that earlier. I never really heard much of the Radiohead influence on here. Whether it's Creep or it's Like Spinning Plates, I just don't hear any Radiohead influence on this record at all. So I don't know if That was maybe for some other songs that got cut. Maybe inevitably Mayhem will most likely receive a deluxe edition because so many albums now do. So maybe then when those songs, assuming that release actually happens and there are additional songs added, maybe at that point, maybe those songs will reveal their more Radiohead influence, because I don't really hear Radiohead on this record at all. But yeah, that's it. I'm done. This video ran way too long. I'm sorry about that. I wanted this to be 3 or 4 minutes, and here it is. Now it's on its way to 10 and a half. So that's it. I am getting out of here. So like always, thank you so much for hanging out with me for 10 and a half minutes now while I discuss Lady Gaga's brand new album. It was released yesterday, Friday, March 7th or whatever it is, 2025. Like always, if you like this record and you think I'm crazy, you think this record's perfect and the disco and Michael Jackson influences work really well for you, don't forget to go and do something nice for somebody. And remember, that's simple. Just hold the door for somebody or give $1 to charity the next time you're at Walmart. But like always, most importantly, never forget that the world is actually a better place because you are in it. You guys kick ass. I'm getting out of here. And I'm probably going to go listen to Abracadabra 10,000 times. Have a good night.